Snowfall fell across Minnesota as severe weather swept across the plains, and we look to repeat that pattern early next week. The latest on the tropics and your all important weekend forecast next at the Weather Farm. Hello, welcome to the Weather Farm. Let's jump right into the details about the recent weather we've had here in the United States. We saw significant amounts of rain across parts of Missouri into Arkansas into Louisiana. 1 to 2 inches were very common on our Wednesday into our Thursday. We even have a swath into northern Michigan of 1 to 2 inches. As we moved further east, as those storms moved on Thursday, lesser amounts, generally half an inch to an inch, were observed. We even had some snowfall from this system. Parts here of southern Minnesota saw anywhere from 2 to 4, as much as 6 inches of snow. On our Thursday, we had an update to the U.S. Drought Monitor. So let's take a look at the latest observation. Again, this takes into consideration all precipitation through Tuesday of this prior week. So we see continued areas of extreme drought and exceptional drought here in the parts of Texas. Wyoming, you've improved just slightly. Here in West Virginia and Ohio, you are also still under an extreme and exceptional drought condition. For our Friday, this is our Friday about 2 o'clock, we see high pressure is stretched from the Rockies all the way across the Ohio Valley to the East Coast. The system that brought those storms to the plains is moving out into the northeast, far to the north of Maine. And on our west coast, we have a new system that's digging in, a new trough that's bringing snow to the higher elevations and rain along the coast. So let's take a look at this pattern. We look at the upper air pattern. Again, as I mentioned, we're going to move into this area of high pressure over the eastern half of the United States. We have a new trough that's digging in across the northwest. And just like the last one, it's going to dig down into the Four Corners region on our Saturday into our Sunday. See this storm digging down through onto our Monday, down into parts of New Mexico. That then starts to eject east. The high pressure in place over the eastern half of the United States helps keep this at bay and sends this pretty much along the same path that the previous storm took on our Tuesday. But we see right behind it another trough digs across the west. And this one looks to be a little bit more intense as it moves a little bit further south. But the thing that you're going to notice is, this is on our Thursday morning, we have area high pressure to the northwest and to the east. This is going to get cut off as a closed low. So we're going to have to really watch to see how that develops, if it develops as this particular model shows in the coming days. And let's take a look at our jet stream. So for our Friday, our jet stream is going to be basically from west to east in a very zonal flow. But as I mentioned, on Friday afternoon, we start to see that hint of another trough developing across the northwest. And as that trough develops, it's going to dig down. We initially see the strongest winds on the entrance region of the jet stream. And then by the time this digs, we see on our Sunday that the strongest winds start to transfer to the exit region of the jet stream. This is a sign, again, that the system is not going to be as intensifying any further other than what it has done. It's going to be pretty much take the same path that the prior storm took, and so that's why we expect another round of severe weather on our Monday night into Tuesday. But just like we saw on the 500 millibar chart, another deeper trough. This one is a little bit is very positively tilted, but you can here see that closed low starting to develop toward the end of next week. Their farm. So for our Friday into our Saturday, the Storm Prediction Center has issued a marginal risk across parts of Texas and a slight risk across Oklahoma, Kansas, Louisiana, and spreading east. There's even a slight risk across the Pacific Northwest. This is due to the fact that as that trough begins to come on shore, there's actually also going to be a little short wave that's going to come across Mexico and interact with some Gulf moisture, and that's going to create enough instability, enough churn in the atmosphere that there is going to be a marginal risk for some severe weather on our Friday. Something to keep in mind, it doesn't expect to be a widespread event like we saw on our Wednesday into Thursday. So let's put the maps into motion here. Again, here's that little system that we talked about that's going to prompt the severe weather. It's going to spread further northeast. It's not really organized. It's not going to be a line of storms like we saw on Wednesday, but it is going to bring rain from Oklahoma into Missouri, into parts of Illinois over this upcoming weekend. Across the northwest, we're going to see, again, those mountain snows developing at those higher elevations. In the eastern half of the United States, you are under the high pressure for most of your Friday into Saturday. But then again, things will change. We see here the Storm Prediction Center on day 4 has issued a 15% chance, and then that slides to the south and east on day 5. So this is our Monday into Tuesday. Just like they had started to issue those severe weather outlooks in advance last week, it's basically the same areas that we're seeing from Monday night into Tuesday. Why only 15%? It's 4 or 5 days out. A lot can change yet. So again, stay tuned here at the Weather Farm for the latest details as this develops. But what we expect to happen on our Monday is that we will have that line of storms like we saw on our Wednesday. As low pressure will eject out of the Rockies, and we'll have this long line of storms, basically again from Texas through Missouri into Illinois, and that's going to move east on our Wednesday. But the thing I do want to note about the Monday system is that just like Wednesday, it is going to be tapping in to that rich moisture area from the Gulf of Mexico. Because if we remember, the jet stream kind of did a down, and then it came up this way, and we saw those higher winds right over here across parts of Kansas. Well, again, if we think how the systems work in a counterclockwise motion, so that's going to go this way in a counterclockwise motion. So as the air parcels move through the jet stream into this exit region of the jet streak, it's going to then pull that moisture up into it. So that's why, again, we're going to get that lift, we're going to get that instability as the trough continues to move east and interacts with that Gulf moisture. Something definitely to watch here. And the amounts of precipitation could be very copious. We could see easily 2, 3, 4 inches of rain from parts of Oklahoma into southeastern Kansas, across central Missouri, into northwestern Illinois. Even down along the parts of Louisiana, 1 to 2 inches is not out of the question. And if we see, again, those parts of Oklahoma into central Missouri, into northwest Illinois, those are some of the hardest hit areas when we looked at our drought monitor. So if this forecast does come to fruition, this will be very beneficial rain for those areas. So let's take a look down at our tropics. As I mentioned, we are watching an area of concern here in the Western Caribbean. There's another area just north of Dominican and Puerto Rico that the National Hurricane Center is watching. And then there's an area out here in the North Atlantic that they are watching. In the next 48 hours, they all have 10 to 20% chance of development. But it isn't until 7 days that we start to see this system. There could be some development here at a 60% chance in the next 7 days of some tropical system developing. This area north of the Dominican and Puerto Rico has about a 20% chance. And this area out here in the Central Atlantic, North Atlantic, really has about a 20% chance of development as well. Something to definitely keep in mind. Sea surface temperatures, again, are still very warm in this area. They have cooled about 1 degree Celsius over the last week. But even that storm that's way out in the North Atlantic, 23, 24 degrees Celsius, is plenty enough warm to get something going if the conditions are right. So we'll continue to watch that. We look into our Saturday. That system, again, that shortwave trough moves into the central plains. Rain is expected from Oklahoma into Kansas, into Missouri. Mountain snows across parts of Idaho into Wyoming. Rain along the east or west coast. Even Florida, the central corridor across parts like Orlando and Tampa, you could see a chance of rain for your Saturday. Then rain across the Dominican and Puerto Rico in association with that disturbance down there. For Sunday, again, rain continues to form across the same areas, Oklahoma into Missouri. That system, that shortwave trough moves up into the Great Lakes. We even have thunder in northern Minnesota possible for our Sunday. Just a sign of how warm and how much moisture is going to be transported from the Gulf all the way up to the Canadian border. Our temperatures for our Friday is going to show that here across parts of the Dakotas, it's only going to be in the 30s. But across the northern tier, temperatures are generally in the 40s and 50s, pretty seasonal for this time of the year. As we look to our Saturday, temperatures do tend to moderate just a few degrees, a little bit warmer across most of the United States than our Friday. Where there is rain, though, across Oklahoma, Missouri here, your temperatures are going to be held down a little cooler. We're going to see 30s and 40s across the Northeast, 70s and 80s across Florida and across most of the Gulf Coast. We're pretty much not seeing any 90s like we saw last weekend across the United States. That does change a little bit on Sunday. We start to see 90s across far southern parts of Texas. The warmth does start to build a little bit further north and east. Again, as we saw that high pressure is going to build in, that's sinking air. Sinking air tends to rise and tends to warm up the atmosphere. Given the dry conditions across many of these locations over the past several weeks, it will not be surprising to see temperatures rise 20 to 30 degrees warmer than their morning lows. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this weather forecast here at the Weather Farm. Do check out our other videos. Leave us a comment. Share this with your friends and family. And hope, again, we see you on Sunday night for the next installment at the Weather Farm.